Welcome everyone who's joining us today. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're joining us from.
I wrote a sticky note and put it on my computer that says, "Be the sponge."
There are some school-specific sponsorships which make you feel like more inclined towards them.
While you're an MBA, you have an unprecedented access to a lot of people, be it alums, recruiters, so your professors, your career services. Make the most out of your time, talk to people, get a clear understanding of what you want to go into.
Hey, hello everyone. A warm welcome to the session on the study plan for working professionals. So before we get started, you just saw a quick preview of the GMAT MBA Spotlight Fair, which is being organized by GMAT Club. It is one of the most popular fairs where you get to meet with the top 50 B schools in the world. Like most of the top B schools are tracked. You get to speak to adcoms, you get to speak to alumni, get real perspectives from the industry as well, and also do register for this spotlight event. It's one of the best events that you can actually help you with the MBA goal, because at the end of the day, like if you are here today, you're then focusing on like getting into that dream B school for yourself, right? So without any further ado, let's get started. So today we are going to talk about the action plan for working professionals. So if you're a working professional watching this, which is most likely the case, so do say a yes in the chat over here. Just a quick shout out, and do tell us like what's your target score, what kind of universities are you targeting. And today you're going to learn a lot about how should a working professional go about creating an action plan step by step in a very organized fashion. What are the various stages of their preparation? How should they go about each stage? What are the key factors that you need to keep in mind in each and every stage? How much effort you need to put into the GMAT. So if you're very new to the GMAT as well, you are at the right place. You'll get to learn exactly how should a working professional do it. So I have a yes from Akash. So is Akash the only working professional here? I hope there are about 25 people live watching this. I would love to see more yeses from you guys. Any one of you who is working professional, let me know about that by saying a yes, and also your target scores and target B school. So that will be great to hear. Okay, in the meantime, you guys tell about yourself. I'm going to quickly introduce myself again. I'm very excited to have this session today. I'm Piyush Beriwala. I'm going to be your main host of the session, and let me just increase the size of the screen now so that you can actually see the presentation as well. So I'm Piyush, and I have about 10 years of experience in the industry, like mentoring students to get into top B schools globally. In fact, I take pride in the fact that my students study at Stanford, Harvard, INSEAD, ISB, IIM, any B school, you name it, we have students. We have sent students, help them get there. So I'm someone who has 10 years of industry experience, and I'm doing a session today after a long time. I think about the last 1.5 months, I was not keeping well. There were a lot of issues, so I did not take a session. So I'm really happy, really energetic. I hope all of you are energetic with me as well to learn how to ace the GMAT. I have taken the GMAT myself. I've prepared for it, taught for GMAT as well as CAT, which is an Indian test. Some of you who are Indians, I see a lot of you are Indians, by the way, Prashant, Akash, and many other people. So if you're Indians, you probably know about CAT. So I have prepared and taught for both. I've scored a 740 on the GMAT myself. I've scored a 99.9 percentile on CAT. And what I love doing is I love analyzing trends. I love coming up with strategies. So that's a quick intro about myself. I do see some people, Hector, Rail Junction, Prashant talking about themselves. So Prashant says that target is a 750, but I'm getting around 650 to 680. Okay, VA is the main problem. So again, Prashant, I'm going to touch upon that a bit, but definitely that's verbal is a very important area where many people struggle. So do stay tuned. In a couple of weeks, we will be doing a strategy session on verbal score improvement as well. So there you can actually get to know a lot more about that. But today's session, I'll definitely touch upon how to get out of that 650 to 680 score plateau. And why do people get stuck in that place, first of all? Okay, so that's good to hear from you, at least that you talked about your target score. I have Sharik saying that is 750 the new 700. Okay, that's an interesting point. So it actually depends on what you're comparing with, like which time period are you comparing with? Are you comparing with like 2000, let's say 50, 2010, 2020? So that depends. So obviously the GMAT has become tougher in that sense. The other way, Sharik, I can interpret your question is that is 750 really required to get into the top B schools? Definitely yes, especially for US B schools. If you're targeting, the average GMAT scores are increasing significantly, like especially after COVID, it has increased a lot. Again, that's a different topic altogether. I cannot get into the depth of that. I have to stick to the study plan one. And I have a very short presentation today, so I'm going to do a lot of talking. I'll be focusing more on discussion. So please feel free to ask me questions. I love that way. I love profession to go that way. I want to know how much does 3 years of work experience carry value with respect to the application. So again, Akash, that's a question which is very difficult. Like I can answer this today, but again, it's not related to the topic that is there. So I'll try to stick to that first. In case you want to have a discussion with me, you can schedule a discussion around it. But generally, it depends on which schools you apply to. So if you're looking at 1 year programs, then probably 3 year work experience is going to be of less value. And it also depends on what kind of work, what kind of impact you have created. Okay, just to quickly answer your question, I just took that. So let's get started without any further ado. So how should your action plan be? So without beating around the bush, let me give you a quick overview of how your action plan should look like. Right? How should you start? So in general, if you are starting today, let's say you are at this level, you're just at point zero, you're starting the thing today. Your most important work starts with phase one. Phase one is where you do most of the heavy lifting. We call this as the learning phase. So basically, this phase is where you do the heavy lifting to kind of understand how different things work in GMAT. You learn all the concepts and everything in the right way. And this is something, if you do it right, you get to a score of around 650 to 700 towards the end of phase one, approximately. And this is where you are doing a lot of heavy lifting, learning everything. Now, what to do exactly in this phase, I'm going to talk about it. Don't worry. This is just a quick overview of how your action plan should look like, so that as I move forward, you're able to connect the dots. You're able to understand how each part is linked to the next portion. Okay, so we are going to spend 70% of our time in the GMAT preparation. Your entire GMAT preparation, 70% of your time should go on the learning phase, which is about 200 to 250 hours. If you're a working professional, you need to probably give this much time. What I'm basically saying here is that if you're a working professional, there is a high likelihood that you have been out of touch with studies for 2 years, 3 years, depends on how many years of work experience you have. But most people who prepare for GMAT have about 4+ years of work experience, like generally. Like if anyone has more than 5 years of work experience, do feel free to write that in the chat. I would love to hear that from you guys. But generally people have 4+ years of work experience. That means you have not been in touch with studies. So the learning phase usually takes about 200 to 250 hours of effort. That's the kind of effort you need to put in this first phase of your preparation on GMAT. Now, since it takes 70% of your effort overall, today's session, 70% of my time I'm going to spend on the learning phase. So we will go deep into it, as deep as possible, understand each and every aspect that you need to do. But what you need to understand is, if you get this learning phase right, you will get to a 650 to 700 level score. Now, if you remember the topic of this session today, we talked about basically getting to a 750. So we are going to understand how do you go from here to a 750. So anyone, like Prashant mentioned that I'm around 650 to 680. Prashant, probably you are still in the learning phase. You have probably not done the learning phase very, very well. So if someone is stuck in this range, by the way, 1/3, just statistically speaking, 1/3 of GMAT aspirants get stuck in the in the range of 600 to 680. Okay, that's a very big score plateau. Most of the people get stuck. So if you're stuck in this range, you probably still need to work. You probably still need to work on the learning phase better. And if you do work on the learning phase properly, you can get up to a 700. But this will still not take you to a 750. So what's your next stage then? The next stage after the learning phase is fine tuning. You need to focus on your weak area specifically. Now, the problem is many of you might be knowing that fine tuning is needed. You might be thinking, Piyush, why are you telling me this? I know that I have to work on my weak areas. Isn't that obvious? But the problem is most people end up mixing the learning phase and the fine tuning phase, and then there is a khichdi of everything. The khichdi is an Indian word. If you know, it's porridge or something. So it's everything mixed up. What you need to understand is a clear segregation between what is needed to be done in the learning phase and what is needed to be done in the fine tuning phase. And if you do this right, your fine tuning will take you anywhere between 50 to 100 hours. Again, on the lower end of the spectrum, if you have done learning phase correctly. If you have not done the learning phase correctly, it might take you 100 hours, even more than that. But usually, a person who goes with a proper action plan spends about 200 hours of effort. That you see the first point that you see over here, 200 hours of effort on the learning phase, 50 hours of effort basically on the fine tuning phase, and then finally, again, what you need to understand is the fine tuning also, you're gonna move to a score range of 700 to 740. It's still not gonna probably take you to a 750. So you need to still work on it. You need to still work on a few more things. And what's that last phase? Any guesses, guys? Can anyone tell me what is the last phase, if you guys know? In the meantime, I'll just take up some points. So Love says, I have 10 years of experience. Rohit says, I have 10 years of experience. I think I need to move mountains to get to the magic score. Again, Rohit, don't worry about it. It definitely will take you some time to get back into the zone of studying and all, but it is doable. GMAT doesn't test you on anything beyond what you have learned in secondary or senior secondary. So obviously, it's not something which is very challenging. It's about getting that discipline right. Okay, so that's important. Okay, so I do have two responses. I have a response from Akash and Sahej, both saying mocks. Exactly, you've got hit the bullseye. The last stage is the mock stage, which takes you to that 750 score. And this is something which it takes about 30 to 50 hours of effort. Again, if you do the first two stages right, it will take you this 30 hours of effort. So overall, if you see, your preparation time would be approximately 280 hours. And this is obviously, I'm talking about average people, obviously average time I'm talking about. We have had people in the past who have taken just 2 months, studied for just 2 months, scored 770 on the GMAT, studied basically for very less time, like less than 150 or 200 hours, and still able to get that score. In case you want to take some inspiration from such people, I'm just gonna share that link in the chat. This is a link which is live in the chat. You guys can use this link and check out his story, check out his interview. It's covered in detail, action plan for 2 months, exactly how Mantavya did it, how he made it to one of the top 10 B schools in the US as well. So you can check out this story. But what I'm trying to say here is that 280 hours of effort is required on an average to get the things right. But if you don't get the things right, it can move to the higher end of the spectrum as well. Okay, so this is just an overview. We're gonna deep dive into this, and you're gonna see this slide. This slide is gonna pop up again and again, so that this etches in your memory. And what you need to understand is that these three phases are sequential. You see them happening one after the other. They should not overlap. And another mistake which many people do. People talk about basically taking mocks from day one. Like again, I don't mind you taking a diagnostic mock to just kind of understand where you stand today. But should you be taking a mock on a regular basis? Probably no. It's not really that much needed. It's important for you to understand that, okay, I need to take mocks only when it is required. Okay, so all these three stages have to be different. Okay, so let's focus on that. Again, I see Prashant getting impatient. He's saying, tell me please how to improve my verbal score. Prashant, again, I'll probably share a link for you for verbal improvement strategy in the short time as I'm able to find some time between the session. But yeah, please stay tuned. I am definitely going to touch upon that topic a little bit today. Okay, so let's understand what should your first step be. So how should a working professional get started? So first step is to kind of set your target scores right. So in the learning phase itself, when you start your learning phase, you need to get the right target scores in mind. Again, I'm just gonna take out the logo of GMAT list for a moment, because again, it's interfering with the slide for now. But basically the target scores have to be set in the right way. You have to understand what is your right target score. Now, some of you mentioned very clearly that I have a target in mind. I'm looking at a 750. Some are saying I'm looking at a 720. But I'm not just talking about overall target scores. You have to understand how to get the right balance in quant and verbal. You need to understand that breakdown of the target scores as well. Because if you don't have that in mind, you will not understand that how much effort is required in each of these areas. Like how much effort I need to put in quant, how much effort I need to put in verbal. So as a working professional, it is very important for you to get the target straight. Okay, so let's understand how to get the target scores right. So first criteria could be that you are someone who is very good in one section, like very good, as in out of quant and verbal, you could have been doing really well in one of the areas. So if you are that kind of a person, it is very important that you maximize your score in your strong section. If you are equally good in both the sections, then it is important for you to balance the target score. So for example, let's take an example. Let's say you're targeting a 750 and your strong area is quant. You're very good in quant. In that case, you need to ensure that you're targeting a quant 51 and a verbal 40. And again, I'm talking about people, let me add this over here, people who are very good, people who are equally good. Okay, so people who are very good in quant target quant 51 with a verbal 40. That's the right mix for you to get a 750 on GMAT. On the other hand, if you're very good in verbal, target a quant 48 and a verbal 45. Both of them will probably take you almost equal amount of effort if you're very good in verbal. On the other hand, if you're equally good in both the sections, then the best target score for you to target is a quant 50 and a verbal 42. Okay, so it's important that you kind of get to that level in terms of your scores. Okay, now that you have understood how to set the target scores, what is the right target score for you, let's understand how to get started. What should your first step be? Okay. Now, as a working professional, any idea, guys? What should your first step be? Again, I see a lot of working professionals here. What was the first step that you guys did? What was the first step that you guys take basically when you started preparing for the GMAT? Let me hear from you. Let's see from you first. Like I know I can probably answer this question for you. I can give you a lot of inputs here, but let's hear from you guys. In the meantime, that what was the first step that you guys took to get ready for the GMAT? Let's hear it from you guys. In the meantime, I'm just quickly gonna give that link for Prashant as well. So Prashant, you're probably gonna get that link really soon. But let's hear from people in the meantime. How what is the first step that you took for starting the GMAT preparation? Okay, so I have just one comment from Rohit. What about others? Are others shy? All right, guys. So, Prashant, I've just shared the link for the verbal score improvement session that I have taken. You can check out this session. This is in depth about how to improve your verbal score if you're struggling with verbal. So this is the link, and you can always subscribe to our YouTube channel. We do a lot of videos around the same, so you can always get more notifications on the same. So do check it out. All right, so I see the responses now. Rohit says GMAT official guide. Brush up basics is what Manan says. Akash is continuation to our plan. Proper plan to start from basics, make a plan. Yes, guys. So again, making a plan is important, but there's something which is even more important. Again, I'm talking specifically about working professionals. And again, you might think, okay, this is something which is like very basic, but most people get this wrong. And if you get this wrong, it breaks your consistency. So what's that we need to do? And Manan probably is touching upon the right aspect, which is scheduling the hours. It's very critical. As a working professional, the biggest problem is getting that right slot. It is very important that you fix a slot for studying. Now, where people go wrong, where working professionals go wrong is that they fix a slot which is outside of their working hours and towards the end of the day. They think that, okay, I'll complete my work and I'll probably study in the evening, which may not be the best thing for you to do. Why? Simply because you have control over when your day starts, but you don't have control over when your day ends. Sometimes your meetings go long, you have more work, office work, and then you also sometimes feel tired after office. So try to fix a slot and get it preferably in the morning. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, what if I'm not a morning person? I would still recommend that try to study in the morning. Still, it will help you. Fix a slot. What is important is that slots should be sacrosanct. So when you're fixing the slot, you have to be consistent with that on a daily basis. Come what may, you have to study at that slot. So for example, let's say if you fix a slot, it's let's say 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. If it is difficult for you to wake up early, if it is difficult for you to make it, just start with a 1 hour slot just to put yourself in that habit. But make sure that you're consistent. Even if you're not feeling well, just take out time. Don't do anything else. From 7 to 8 in the morning, sit there. Study less, but do study. Make sure that you're consistent. And in order to get this, you also need to get buy-ins from the ones that matter in your life. If it is a family member, if it is a friend, it is your girlfriend, it's your manager, you have to take a buy-in from them. You have to make sure that this slot is when no one disturbs you, come what may. And this is the most important thing that a working professional needs to get started. I see Agnes, Sahaj, Akash. It's very important to plan, definitely. And this is a part of planning as well. But this is the first step that you need to take. Got it? Any questions on this? Feel free to ask me in the chat. I'm more than happy to answer. But this is where people go wrong. This is where they don't plan things and they don't stay consistent. And you have to sit with this slot. At least do this for 21 days to push yourself. Again, as a working professional, you are gonna have this initial inertia. You are gonna feel that you're not improving your score. I remember my case. I had 4 years of work experience when I actually started my preparation. And at that point of time, I remember I was not able to do well at all. I used to go to a coaching class basically, and I used to kind of see that there's a handout which is being rolled out to students, and I was probably the last one to complete the questions over there. I used to score really poorly. And as a working professional, it happens. If you have like four plus years of experience, you lose touch with studies. So initially, you could probably end up in a similar situation. But you have to make sure that you give 21 days regularly in that stuff. Okay? And then things start to improve. Things started improving after that one. That was the big point. Okay? So make sure 3 weeks minimum. Now, what is buy-ins? Akash probably has an answer for you, Hector. Buy-ins is basically getting in the approval of people who matter to you, people who can impact you most, like maybe your manager, maybe your friend, if you're married, your wife, your spouse, anyone, your child, probably, like I don't know if your child will be able to give you a buy-in, but you have to adjust your schedule in a way and make sure that everyone around you understand that this is the time you should not be disturbed. Okay, very critical, guys. Please make sure you do that. Now, with that in mind, we have to talk about two different categories of working professional, and not just working professionals. It's just about human beings. Like everyone is wired in a different way. Like you could be very different from who I am. Everyone else is different. So, two broad ways I look at people, and this is more about habit forming. Now, and this is always true in GMAT case as well, because GMAT study is also forming a habit in that way. So first category of people are those who take time to form a new habit. So if you generally, whenever it comes to learning something new, you take time to get into a schedule, then you probably fall into that category. Other people are those who find it fairly easy to form a new habit. For example, for me, when I want to form a new habit, it is very easy for me to form a new habit. I just need to find my why. When I needed to study for GMAT, I just needed to find my why, that why do I need to do an MBA? I started researching about these schools. I started talking to people around that. I started dreaming of getting into INSEAD, that kind of a thing. And then that helped me, that pushed me to study. Okay. And similarly, like when I remember I am a big foodie. And when COVID happened, like the problem was there was a complete lockdown. And I remember that time as well that like I did not know how to cook anything at all. But since because of COVID, I started learning how to cook. But the food which I liked eating, because I couldn't order it from restaurants or couldn't go to restaurants. And many of you would have done that, right? So if you're someone who find it fairly easy to form a new habit, you belong to category two. Or if you're someone who actually take time to form a new habit, you are in category one. Now, your initial 2 weeks or 3 weeks time slots, like time division across quant and verbal or your GMAT preparation in general, has to be different based on which category you fall into. So let's talk about people who fall into the first category, people who take time to form a new habit, which is the majority of the people. Like when I speak to students on a daily basis, I see most people telling me that I take time to form a new habit. So what are the pointers that you need to keep in mind? Let's get started with that. So first thing, I would recommend that you should start with your stronger section. So if you go back to our previous slides, like we talked about the target score breakdown. So you need to understand which of the two areas like are you good at. So if you're someone who is better in quant than verbal or better in verbal than quant, understand which is your stronger section, and at least for the first 2 weeks, just focus on doing that section. Anyone can think of any reason why. Why am I saying so? Why should you just focus on like a stronger section in the first 2 weeks? Anyone can think of a reason. I'll just sip water in between. Like let's hear from you guys. Anyone can think of a reason why it is important to start with the stronger section. Okay, no responses still. Not that difficult a question, guys. How many hours do you need to put every day? Hector, that's going to come up in the next thing itself. So it will help us to make the habit that is easier for us to focus. Exactly. Increasing in the confidence. Yes, Rohit, very well said. These are the points which are important. See, if you actually find it difficult to kind of form a new habit, then it is sometimes important for you to ensure that you are motivated. And if you start with your weak section, then you will actually lose that motivation, maybe just because you're not doing well. So it's important that you start with the stronger section so that you start right, you start strong. If you remember, I talked about I am not doing very well in the beginning. So obviously that could demotivate you if you are in category one. I was in category two, did not demotivate me that much, but it could demotivate you. So start with your stronger section. That's point number one. Please make sure that you do that for 2 weeks. Once 2 weeks are over, obviously you can start working on things in parallel, and I'll talk about that as well. Now, for the first 2 weeks, I recommend spending only 75 to 80% of time available on Gmail. Now, what I mean by this? So let's say on a daily basis, on weekdays, you can devote 2 hours on weekdays, basically, and on weekends, you can probably devote 6 hours, okay, on weekends. All right. So almost you have 2 into 5, 10 hours here, and 2 into 6, you have about 22 hours in a week. So what I'm saying is that in the beginning, in the first 2 weeks, only devote 75 to 80% of this time on GMAT. So out of this 22 hours, 75 to 80% would be close to about, let's say, give or take 16 to 17 hours. Okay. So don't study for more than 16 to 17 hours. That is important. Sometimes people burn themselves out in the very beginning. They push themselves too hard. If it is a new habit that you're forming, you cannot start with the maximum potential. You cannot, if you're just starting to go to a gym, you do not lift heavy dumbbells on day one. You start with free hand exercises, basic things like treadmill, running on the treadmill for 5 to 10 minutes. You make sure that you free yourself up. Similarly, for GMAT, you need to free your mind space. Okay, you need to ensure that you're able to focus. So this is important. So again, like Hector, like whatever time is available with you, 75 to 80% of the time, if you are in category one, and once you are out of this 2 weeks, like the first 2 weeks is what you are doing this for, basically. So first 2 weeks or 3 weeks maximum. The idea is once you feel settled in that slot, you're consistently studying in that slot, then you need to move to the second phase, like second phase of your learning, where you need to start picking up things faster. So here you will start putting in 100 hours, 100% of your available time, and you will also start working on quant and verbal both. But just one caveat: only you study quant and verbal both only if you are doing more than 20 hours in a week. If you are not doing more than 20 hours in a week, I would not recommend doing both quant and verbal in tandem, because then you will not be generating enough momentum on any one of the two. So it is important for you to actually ensure that you are doing more than 20 hours in a week to kind of do both in parallel. Otherwise, as a working professional, I would not recommend you to kind of do things in parallel. Do them sequentially. Work on one section first and then the second section. Okay. Hope that is clear to all of you. And thank you so much, Roshan, Kunal, and all for chiming in and sharing your thoughts. I really love it when you guys share your thoughts as you proceed. Okay. So now what about the other category? Again, let's just quickly going back to the category. So we talked about this category, picked up. Let's talk about people who find it fairly easy to form a new habit. Now, if you are someone who finds it fairly easy to form a new habit, I would recommend right away to go ahead with your stronger section. It is very, very critical that you start with the strong section. Weak section, not strong section, because if it is easy for you to form a new habit, you take up things which you are weak at. That way, you will be able to give more time to your weakness, as Kunal has said, to give weaker section enough time. You will be able to give more time to your weakness to start with, and you'll be able to improve your score faster. And obviously, from day one itself, you can probably start putting 100% of the time available. Again, up to you. Still, you can do 80%, 90% if you feel burnt out. But just make sure that like you're not being burnt out. So that's important. But you can probably do 100 hours, 100% of your time available as well from day one if you want to. If you are someone who finds it really easy to follow the habit. Okay, so going back to the action plan. Remember, we are still talking about the learning phase. Okay, so let's now understand how to go about planning this learning phase. So what you need to definitely start with is you need to create a weekly action plan. Now, we talked about finding a schedule slot. We talked about fixing the slot, taking buy-ins. We also talked about how you should go about the first 2 weeks, like how much effort you need to put in. But exactly what do you do? Now, that's a problem as well for many working professionals. You probably don't understand how the GMAT is. You probably take up a random study plan from the internet, which probably doesn't take into account your strengths, your weaknesses. So it is very important for you to create a weekly action plan. And for that, you have to have the right tools. You need to understand how GMAT functions. What do I need to do? Where do I need to start? Where do I need to focus my attention? Now, if you don't have any understanding of that, don't worry. You can just create a free trial account on GMAT. I'm going to give you an option where you can actually create an action plan for free. So just start with a very quick free trial. You just go to GMAT, create a free trial. I'll give you the link. Don't worry about that. And it will actually ask you some very, very simple questions. And all of this study plan is completely free. So just set your target GMAT score, whatever is there in your mind based on these scores. Select your current score. If you have taken a mock test, good. If you have already taken, select your scores, tell the portal, okay, what is my current score? What is my current verbal score? Just mention that to the portal. If you don't have a score, if you can always select that other option. You can even select geometry, algebra wise scores, all the details that you have. And based on that, then you mention how many hours can you study, which is the comfortable time. If you think, okay, you can manage 11 to 20 hours, select that. If you think you can manage more, select that. And then the platform automatically starts creating a study plan for you. So at a very high level, it will tell you exactly where to start. Let's say start with the introduction, let's understand the GMAT basics. Then let's go through sentence correction. Then let's go through critical reasoning and so on. So it will tell you a simple idea about how many days of effort you would be needing. And then you click on the next button and you'll be able to actually see a proper weekly study plan, which will exactly tell you how much effort is needed in the current week. So in the current week, you need to put in this much effort. You need to complete these many videos, these many quizzes. You'll be able to see that. In fact, on the top over here, you'll see a toggle. And in the calendar view, you will be able to see the entire week-wise plan for each calendar. And this study plan will get refreshed as well. And at the click of a start button, you can actually start working on some of the files as well. So the content in the free trial is limited to a few topics. Obviously, we cannot open our entire portal for you for free, but at least the study planning feature, the calendar view is completely free of charge. You can definitely do that planning from GMAT directly without any problems at all. And if you want to have access to content, you will have access to some limited content in the free trial. And obviously, you can, if you like the content, you can always avail the other part of the curriculum as well, which is the paid course. So you can see the entire calendar being planned for you. You can see each week what you need to do, and everything is there in the calendar view itself. Okay, so if you want to create a study plan, you can easily create it using the free trial link. I'm just gonna give you the study plan free trial link over here in the chat, guys. So first step, again, remember, first step is to create a weekly action plan. Why is it important? Because if you don't have an action plan, you don't know where to do, what to do, and you will only do things randomly. Most people just start solving questions randomly, like from the official guide or somewhere else. But you need to understand where to start, what to do. Okay, so just make sure that you create a proper action plan first. And once that is done, like you need to start acting on it, obviously. So I'm going to talk in depth about what you need to do when you're acting upon it, what should be the structure and all of that. But at a broad level, I want you to quickly understand, again, the GMAT Viz portal will also give you a proper study plan, but I want you to also understand what should be a sequence of studying generally, like how should you go about like the sequence, like what should you start with and all. Again, this is something which is already there incorporated in the GMAT Viz study plan as well. So what we recommend for verbal is that there are 3 skills which are tested in GMAT verbal, like comprehension, where you need to understand the individual areas really well, in terms of, okay, what is the meaning of each sentence, what is the meaning of each paragraph. You also have to analytically reason whether something can be inferred, whether something can be concluded or not, what is the assumption which is there. And you also need to identify the main idea in long passages. So obviously, if you map the skills to the verbal sections, SC just tests you on the first skill, CR tests you on both the first 2 skills, and then RC tests you on all 3 of them. So ideally, we recommend doing SC before CR and then doing RC if you are a beginner, if you're a beginner in GMAT. Obviously, if you're someone who has prepared for some time, you can obviously start with your weaker section. But if you're a beginner, SC then CR then RC makes more sense. And similarly, for quant, we recommend a sequence which is already on your screen, which is not the typical sequence which you will see that, okay, let's do all the number property topics first or all the algebra related topics first. Something you should do is a mix up of these topics based on the difficulty level, or let's say the interdependence of one topic from the other. So on the other. So if you do prime numbers, probably before coming to primes, you need to know about even odd numbers. You need to know about exponents. So this is the right sequence of learning for quant. And again, this is something you will find in the GMAT study plan as well. So again, those of you who have just joined us, if you want, you can always create a free trial account and create a study plan. Okay. So first step, again, when you are starting executing. So before this first step, we talked about a quick review. We talked about making sure that you find the slot, making sure that you have the right targets in place, making sure that you study 75 to 80% if you are in category 1, and starting with your stronger section. So again, for those steps aside, that is like more of the important aspects that you need to take care of. But exactly when it comes to studying, you need to have this sequence in mind. Now, how do you go about studying? For every topic, like when I talk about topics is basically individual line items that you see on the screen. So for example, Prime numbers is a topic over here. Okay, prime numbers is a topic. Divisibility is a topic. Linear equations is a topic. In sentence correction, you have verb tenses as a topic. Pronouns as a topic. All those are topics. So how to work on each topic? There are 3 stages that you need to follow. Okay, that's very important. Puneet has a question. Can I also solve CAT quant questions for GMAT practice? Puneet, depends. Not every topic which is tested in CAT is tested on GMAT. The questions also are different. So again, if you want to over prepare, unnecessarily spend that much time, you can do that, but that will be wasting almost 50% of your time, because more than 50% of topics in CAT are not going to be tested on GMAT. So there's no point doing that. It's better to kind of do practice on GMAT study material. That's always better. And there's no dearth of GMAT study material. You'll find a lot of them on GMAT Club. You'll find a lot of them on GMAT as well. Okay, so better to spend time over there. Okay, so what are the 3 stages of learning? So stage one of your learning, when your learning phase is just started, is make sure that for every topic you learn the concepts first. Okay, and again, I'm pretty sure that most of you do this. So for example, if you are doing prime numbers, you need to understand, okay, how to prime factorize numbers, what is the formula for total number of factors. You need to understand how these formulas also work. So when you're learning concepts, learn the concepts in a logical fashion. Don't just memorize the concept, because if you just memorize the concepts, you are not gonna do it well. You're not gonna get the maximum out of it. So it's very important for you to ensure that you learn the concepts in a systematic and a logical fashion. Okay. So similarly, for example, if you're learning divisibility, you probably need to learn the divisibility rules of all the different topics and everything. Now, most people get this step right. And I'm pretty sure most of you would be thinking that, Piyush, yeah, this is obvious, I'm doing this. But the second step is what becomes very, very critical. And most people who get stuck actually make a mistake with this step. They actually do not learn a methodical approach to solve questions. They do not do that at all. And that's where they struggle. Because if you don't learn a methodical approach, it actually creates issues with you in hard questions. And I'll touch upon this aspect more. Okay. And please tell me, like, if you guys have actually focused on learning methods after learning concepts, do say a yes, or do say a no if you have not done that in the chat. I would love to see some thoughts from you guys, because again, when I interact with students, I feel this step is missing for most of them. When they learn methods, for many people, methods are just shortcuts, but that's not what I'm talking about. You have to learn proper logical methods that work on questions, and you have to also learn all different variations that are tested on GMAT. So if you understand GMAT, the good thing about GMAT is that there are not too many different type of questions that come on GMAT, because GMAT happens the year round. Okay, you take the GMAT any day, right? Now, when a test happens that often, a test creator cannot create new questions all the time. They have to kind of set a standard that is required for testing everyone, because they have to kind of mark them on those bases. So obviously, by design itself, GMAT ends up becoming very, very structured. So there are specific patterns which are there in every topic. There are specific type of questions. And I'm again not asking you to learn shortcuts. I'm asking you to understand the variations. Okay. So what you need to do is learn all variations. So let's take an example. So let's say if we talk about divisibility again. So we know that if I represent a number as a quotient into divisor plus the remainder, then we have questions on GMAT that test us on this aspect, that if a number when divided by a divisor D1 gives us the remainder R, then what is the remainder when this number is divided by a divisor D2? So they are just flipping around with the divisor, and they're asking you for the remainder. What is the change in remainder? So this is the core construction. But what are the variations possible? So one of the variation possible is basically that D2 is a factor of D1. You have, let's say, a number divided by 12 giving a remainder of 5. They're asking you what is the remainder when it is divided by 6. There is a slight variation of the same thing, where instead of the remainder becoming smaller than the divisor, it is slightly bigger than the divisor. Then there is another variation where the second divisor is actually a multiple of the first divisor. Instead of 12 and then 6, you have 6 and then 12. Okay. Then there is another variation where there is nothing common between D2 and D1. They say that, okay, a number when divided by 20 leaves a remainder of 5. What is the remainder when the number is divided by, let's say, 21? Okay, so again, there are different variations which are possible in every topic. Okay, so after you learn the concepts, you need to understand how GMAT tests you on different concepts in which way, basically. And based on that, you need to learn methods to solve it. Now, to help students achieve the same, at GMAT Ways, our team has put in a lot of hard work and effort to come up with the idea of concept booster. Now, what is a concept booster? It's a very unique and neat idea that we came up with. So what our team did was we sat on different topics and we sat on all official questions. We researched on all the questions. We looked at them. We categorized them into buckets. That okay, there are these 200 official questions on prime numbers, but they can be broadly categorized into 12 different variations. And what we did was we created a booster file or a concept booster file in every single topic. So let's say you're doing prime numbers. After you learn the concepts through the video lectures that we have on our portal, you will get to see the concept booster where you will only get to solve one question at a time. You start with a variation of a question, one particular type of variation. And right after you solve the question, you will get to see a detailed step-by-step solution, which will show you how you should have approached it. What should have been your first step? How should you have read the information? What should have you thought first? What next? And so on. Now, why we do this is simply because when you're solving just one question at a time and you look at the solution, you are able to understand that, okay, this is how my thought process was. Instead of doing 10 questions, let's say if you do 10 questions and then you start looking at the solutions, then obviously your mind is not very fresh with how you did the first step. What was the first step that you took? What was the second step that you took? So when you're solving questions, even in general, at the initial stage, at least do one question at a time. Analyze the solution right away, see what your method was, what the method is supposed to be, and then you look at the gaps in your method. So try to understand the differences in the right between your method and the right method. And once you learn those differences, then move on to the next question. So basically, after question one, you are looking at solution one, then you are looking at question two. So whatever learning you have from question one, you apply on question two, then you look at solution two, then you go to question three, learn more from solution two, imply on question three. So this is the best way to kind of put your learnings into practice. Also at the same time, improve your approach towards solving questions. And every concept, every question, in fact, in the concept booster in GMAT is handpicked and it covers a different aspect of basically how the topic is tested. In case you want to understand more about how our course is structured, I'm going to put a link to kind of schedule a call with us, our team as well. That way we can get to know more about it. But every concept booster has questions which are testing you on different aspects. And this is very important for any working professional who has very limited time. So obviously time is a costly resource for you. You cannot waste time. So it's very important that you get started and you approach all the different type of questions from the get-go. You don't want to be under-prepared or over-prepared. So it is important that you tackle this. And this concept booster you'll find in every topic in GMAT. So for example, if you're doing prime numbers, this is just an approximation of how prime number looks like on GMAT. You see that these are the video lessons where you're learning the concepts, and these are the boosters where you're actually learning the method of solving the questions. Okay. Now, some of you might be thinking that why am I talking so much about the method? What is it about the method that is so important? The reason I'm talking about mainly the method is this is the main reason why people get stuck and they're not able to achieve that target. Because it's easy for you to get an easy and medium question right, but it is not easy to get the hard question right. And contrary to popular opinion where people think that, okay, you know what, in order to get the hard questions right, I need to time myself right. That's not the case. The main problem where you struggle with hard questions is because you just don't know how to solve them. You just don't know right methods. So it is very important for you to develop those methods. Okay. And the right methods for all the different sections, I've just listed them on the screen. Obviously, I cannot talk about all of them at length. But in case you want to know more about this, you can always check out our YouTube channel. We conduct webinars on this. There are a lot of webinars that are conducted by GMAT Club as well. You can read upon these methods. These are the best methods which work for you on every type of question. So make sure that you learn this method. Because if you don't learn that, you will not end up scoring well on GMAT. Now, why do I say so? The data is in front of you. So let's spend 1 or 2 minutes on this data over here. So what you see right now on your screen is the snapshot of enhanced scorecards, which are scorecards given by GMAT if you want to get more details about your score. So on the left side, you see a student has made 5 mistakes and you see the verbal score of this student as 41. Okay. On the right side, you see a student who has made, left side is 7 mistakes, 41. Right side is a student who has made 5 mistakes. Again, generally I ask people to guess the verbal score. That's why you see that question mark over there. But I'll just quickly reveal the verbal score of the student. The verbal score of the student is just 34. And think about it for a moment. We're talking about a person making 7 mistakes versus 5 mistakes, and we're talking about a score difference, but not a score difference where people who have made more mistakes getting less score. We are talking about people who have made less mistakes getting less score. And that's where GMAT is different. That's where GMAT algorithm is different. And if you look at the percentiles are very different. Like the person who made 7 mistakes has gotten a 93 percentile. On the other hand, the person who made 5 mistakes has gotten just a 71 percentile. And that's how the GMAT algorithm works. Again, now I know some of you might be thinking about the GMAT algorithm and all. So if you want to check out, I've done a detailed video around the GMAT algorithm and all. So you can check out this link. I've just shared that in the chat as well. So you can always do that, check it out at your convenience later on also. Basically, this is there in the chat. This link is there. You can check it out. But the idea, what I wanted to communicate here was that in GMAT, you just can't actually look at accuracy, because when you want to achieve a 700 plus target score, and in fact, let me talk about 750. Let's not talk about 700. Let's talk about 750 as your target score. Okay. So what you need to achieve is that you need to have a 90 to 100% accuracy in easy and medium questions. There is no scope for error there. Okay, you cannot just go wrong. Again, I'm saying no scope, but yeah, 90% I'm also saying at the same time. So that's a little contradictory. But what I'm trying to say is that you should strive for perfection. Because if you target 100%, you'll probably end up at 90%. But your target should be that I should not make any errors in the easy and medium questions. At the same time, you have to get a decent accuracy in hard questions. Like if you want a 750 kind of a number, you probably need to get around 70% accuracy in the hard questions as well. Unless you do that, you cannot do well on the GMAT. Okay, GMAT is an adaptive test. It doesn't give you a high score based on your accuracy. It gives you a high score based on the difficulty level of the questions that you're getting correct. So if you get consecutive questions correct, the difficulty level goes up. And once the difficulty level goes up, if you still continue to do well on those hard questions, the score goes up and the difficulty level goes up further or is maintained. So as a goal, when you're targeting a 750 as a working professional, you cannot just prepare for easy and medium questions. You have to prepare for hard questions. And to get the hard questions right, what do we need? We need to learn the right methods. We need to learn the right methods. And I talked about the right methods. Like in the slide before that, I talked about the right method overall. Like what are the right methods? I'll just try to bring that slide once again. Let's see if that comes properly. So these are the methods that I talked about. So make sure that you learn these methods. Okay, so we are still talking about the learning phase. In the learning phase, step one, every topic that you're learning, first you have to have a weekly plan, which should tell you exactly where to start, the right sequence. Then you need to have individual items where you need to understand the concepts first for each topic. Okay, once you have learned the concept of that topic, you need to learn the right methods of solving the questions. Okay, now I'll just take this to the next level. I'll also show you how to analyze the solutions to understand whether you're using the right method. Because please understand this, if you're not using the right methods, if you're not learning the right methods in the learning phase, you will get stuck in which phase? You'll get stuck in the fine-tuning phase. You will start hitting that score plateau. And I'm pretty sure that if you are an active member on GMAT Club, you would see many people talking about themselves getting stuck in a certain score for a long time. And most of the people get stuck in the score range of 600 to 680, mainly because of the methods. And if you learn the wrong methods, you have to unlearn them, you have to work on them. It takes longer. So it's better to learn the right methods from day one. Okay? So I'm going to just, I've done a very big monologue, but I'll just show you how to apply, how to learn the right method. Okay? So I'm just giving you this question. I'm not going to solve this question simply because our objective is not to solve this particular question, but our objective is to learn about something about how to analyze the solutions. Okay, so I'm just removing the GMAT Club logo for a moment. So you cannot see the option E, but that's okay because the objective is to read this argument. So this is a CR question. I just wanted to read the argument. There's no need to look at the options at all. No need to look at it. Just focus on the argument. I'm giving you 1 minute to read it, and I'm going to be muted for that 1 minute. I want you to just focus on this and read the argument and understand the argument. Okay? So I'm going to mute myself for 1 minute. All right, guys, I hope you were able to read it. I was just given approximately 1 minute. Again, as I said, the objective is not solving this question or to CR. The idea is for you to understand how to look at the solution. Now, if you want, please tell me like how do you generally analyze the solution? So let's say anyone has solved this question. Uh, what do you do? What do you do generally? Now, if you look at public forums, if you look at general approaches that people follow, is that they look at the analysis of each option directly. They start working on, okay, what is option A, what is option B, why is it wrong, why is it right, and they start focusing on those things instead of focusing on the main aspect, which is developing and making sure that you are actually thinking, you're analyzing the questions done properly. Again, in critical reasoning, we recommend that you focus on the analysis of the argument first and then go to pre-thinking and then answer choice elimination. So these are three steps that we recommend. Now, many people don't follow these three steps in that way. They start with basically directly with, let's say, quickly reading the argument and answer choice elimination. So after you have done the question, then you need to analyze the solution in a proper way, where what you do is you look at the solution in this fashion. So let's say this is the solution of this question. Where what we have done at GMAT is we have presented the analysis of statement 1. So for statement 1, what is that your line of thought should be is very clearly mentioned over here. So it is very important that after solving the question, you look at the line of reasoning and you stick with this line of reasoning. You check, you ask yourself that when I was solving the question, did I think of the information provided in the same way? If I did not think of it in the same way, what is that I missed out? Why did I miss out on it? So try to focus on the approach. Then look at the second step, second sentence. See the analysis of the second sentence. Ask yourself, did I combine these two pieces of information together and did I come to this inference which is presented over there? So what I'm asking you to do is, if you really want to hit that 750 as a working professional in the least possible time, please make sure that you check your approach towards solving questions at every stage. See that how you're approaching the questions at every stage. Is that approach the correct approach? Is it actually matching with how you should have solved it? So try to learn a methodical step-by-step approach while solving the questions, and that is something which will actually help you in scoring high on GMAT in the shortest possible time. Okay. So Prashant is asking for any good GMAT test series. So again, if you are looking at reliable test series, I would recommend looking at official mocks, Manhattan mocks, GMAT mocks. These are pretty good in terms of the test series and the quality of questions. Okay. Now, so what we have talked about is every topic you learn the concepts, then you learn how to solve questions using a methodical approach. The next step is to kind of practice questions and identify gaps in the topics. So after you have learned the methods, now is the time to take a proper topic-wise quiz. Try to take a topic-wise quiz. See what your strengths are. If you're really, whether you're really doing well in that topic or not. If you're not doing well in that topic, then you need to find out your weaknesses and actually work on the weaknesses right away. So try to identify the concepts that you have not understood, the finer details of it. Now, why am I saying so? The reason I'm saying so is I've seen people not performing very well in a topic and still moving forward to the next topic without realizing that if they don't identify their concept gaps and if they don't act upon their weaknesses right away, your issues will pile up. So don't let the issues pile up, because in GMAT, a lot of topics are interconnected. In Quant, most of the topics are interconnected. You will have one topic impacting the performance of the other topic. In verbal also, a lot of topics are interconnected, especially within sentence correction and critical reasoning. So if you're not doing very well in one topic, there is a high chance that you might not end up doing very well in another topic. So it is important that you actually go topic wise and improve upon one topic and then move forward to the next topic. Okay. So again, going back to our drawing board, GMAT action plan. So you remember learning phase. So we are coming to the end of how the learning phase should be. So what we need to do for the learning phase is ensure that we have a proper study plan. We actually go through each step, each topic in a 3-step format. So basically for the learning phase, if you work with the GMAT study plan, that will take care of your learning curve. It will give you a proper action plan and that will be taken care of. So we help you with the learning phase entirely, proper study plan, proper actionable items. Then you move to the fine-tuning stage. So now what do we do in fine-tuning? Now fine-tuning is a very personal affair. Now many people actually struggle with fine-tuning. They don't get the fine-tuning right. And that's why, as I said, like if you want to push your target score, if you want to push your score to a 700, 740, it is very important that you get the like fine-tuning right. Because if you don't get the fine-tuning right, you will end up with that in the first stage itself. If you remember, if you go back, if you just do the first stage right, you're going to be stuck in the score range. So to get to the score range, which is the next bracket, you have to get the fine tuning correct. Now, this is a very personal thing because after the learning phase, every individual is different. They might have their own strengths, their own weaknesses, and that's why at GMAT Wiz, we strongly recommend to kind of work with mentors. So at GMAT Wiz, we provide a dedicated mentor to all our students. And obviously, you can connect with your mentor in the learning phase as well. Like we recommend doing that as well, so that they can tell you if there is something going wrong. You can start working on the weaknesses right away from the get-go, from the very best day. But the mentor's role even becomes much more important in the fine tuning because when you connect with a mentor, the mentor can actually look at multiple factors. They can look at what is your current like performance, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses. They can look at your GMAT data. They can look at the time available with you before the GMAT. They can look at your target score, and they can look at what kind of mistakes are you making. Are they methodical mistakes? Are they conceptual mistakes? And based on that, they can create an action plan for you. Because the action plan over here is much more difficult to create. Like for the first part, as I said, if you remember the first part, you will get a GMAT is action plan created by your AI tool, which will automatically create an action plan, including using your strengths weakness analysis and create an action plan. But over here, when you go to the fine tuning phase, it becomes much more complex. So we recommend connecting with your mentor and creating an action plan for that. So again, if you want to know more about our services, how we help you, how our mentorship works at GMAT Wiz, feel free to schedule a call with our team using this link which I have provided in the chat. I'm just going to flash that for you. You can know more about us, our services using this. But every GMAT student gets a dedicated mentor who is a GMAT expert. Okay, Prashant, if you want to know about tutoring services as well, you can always connect with me using this link as well, and I'll be happy to share more details about the same. But overall, at a high level, what should you be doing in the fine tuning? How should your approach be? So let's talk about that because that's a very important part of your action plan. Your action plan to 750 is incomplete without this. So what should you do? The first step when it comes to this is ensuring that whatever time is available with you, you devote 60 to 70% of it solely on your weak areas. So let's say you're studying 25 hours in a week. Okay, so 70% of that, close to about 17 to 18 hours, you are gonna give specifically on your weak areas, and the rest of it, about 7 to 8 hours, you're gonna divide on general revision and general practice because obviously you don't want to convert your strengths into weaknesses as well by not staying in touch. So it is important for you to strike the right balance. And in order to strike the right balance, you have to ensure that you are maintaining the right score in both the strong and weak areas. So obviously your weak areas need more attention, but don't ignore your strong areas. Especially for those of you who are very good in quant, this is very important. We see many people all the time working too hard on verbal, improving the verbal scores, and then their quant score flunks altogether. Okay, so don't make that mistake. So what should your fine tuning be then? So identify your weak areas, categorize them into buckets, understand what are your conceptual weaknesses, what are your application weaknesses, where you are going wrong because you don't understand the concepts, and where you are going wrong because you don't know the right method of solving the questions. Okay. Now for that, you can keep a benchmark of 60% and 85%. So if your score is less than 60%, generally in a topic, you are making conceptual mistakes. If your score is between 60 to 85%, you are probably making application mistakes. That's one way of benchmarking. The other way of benchmarking it is that if you are getting hard questions wrong consistently and easy and medium questions correct consistently, then you are having application gaps. On the other hand, if you are getting medium questions also wrong consistently, then you are mostly having conceptual gaps also in that. Now, based on what kind of gap it is, you need to tackle this area separately. So if it is a conceptual gap, for example, you need to learn the concepts and formulas on that topic first. You need to go back to the basics, revise those concepts, revise those formulas, and do also learn how to solve questions. Again, a similar thing. So probably when you are doing this topic in the learning phase, you did not do this right. Okay. And if you have any questions, guys, feel free to ask me as I proceed. Okay. I see I'm actually focusing a lot of monologue, and I see you guys are focusing a lot on it to learn everything. But if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. I actually love taking those questions up. Okay. So make sure that you go back to your learning phase again for that particular topic. Do those steps again and ensure that you practice 15 to 20 questions at least on this topic before moving forward. And when you are at this stage, when you have conceptual gaps on something, Don't try to focus on getting the hard questions right from the get-go. That won't happen. Initially, it won't happen. Your focus should be that I move to a level from here where I can actually get to a level where I am getting all easy and medium questions correct. That should be your first step. And then only you should focus on getting the hard questions correct. Okay, so that should be your benchmark. That should be your benchmark. Now, if you have application gaps in something, as in you're only getting the hard questions wrong, or your accuracy is, score is around 60 to 85% in that topic, then you don't need to revisit the concept. You probably have a sound understanding of it already. Okay, so what you need to do is you need to learn how to solve questions in a methodical fashion. You just need to work on the method part. You don't need to work on the concept part at that stage. Okay, please make sure that you understand this. And maybe solving about 10 to 15 questions might suffice initially, but here what is important is that you are doing one question at a time. Okay, one question at a time, and you're looking at the solution right away, because since your application gap exists, like you are not able to use a methodical approach to solve questions, you probably need to work a little more on the method. And for that, if you remember, it is important for you to learn a step-by-step approach for solving the question. Okay, I hope this makes sense. You're able to understand how to go about this process. Okay, now if you're a GMAT student, all of this is automated. You don't need to worry about, okay, what is my weakness, what is my concept analysis or application gap. We do share a lot of data with you. You can see a lot of data on the bottom. There's more data below this fold as well. But the AI also analyzes your strengths and weaknesses and categorizes your weaknesses into buckets. What are your concept weaknesses? Where do you need to fine tune the concepts, as in do more practice? Where do you need to improve your time? Okay, so you get clear, actionable insights. And at a click of a button, you don't just have to read the data. At a click of a button, if you have to work on something, if you have to act upon something, you have those action items with you. So if you learn a concept, you will have the videos of those concepts. The same concepts that you're weak at, you'll get the videos of those concepts to work on. And at a click of another button, you can then take the next step, which is to solidify through practice of questions. And you automatically take the timing into account. How much time should you give for different areas based on your strengths and weaknesses? So all of this is there in our portal. And also you have that option of connecting with your mentor so that we can even personalize this further. So we have this technology layer which personalizes content for you. Then we have this human layer, human intervention that you can use. And that's why if you do both of these together, you actually ensure that you are getting ready in the right way. Now, another important aspect is, when should you start timing yourself? Now, when it comes to preparation, especially for working professionals, if you are someone who has been out of touch with studies, you cannot expect your timing to be right on day one, because when you are learning the right methods, when you're learning the right methods, it is very important for you to focus on the methods. And Hector has a relevant question. He says, at the beginning, do we need to count the time for any question? So yeah, Hector, I'm just talking about this point. So it's good to see that I'm actually thinking in the same way as a student is thinking. So great. So in the learning phase, do not focus on time. Focus on learning the right method, even if it takes you slightly longer to actually learn the right method. Because if you actually start timing yourself in the beginning, what will happen is that your focus will shift away from learning the method to solving questions faster. And when you start focusing on solving questions faster, you end up making mistakes there. There's a high chance that you will not learn the right approach. You'll end up making some mistakes in the approach, or you will start using shortcuts, which will probably not work for you. Sorry, guys, just a bit of a cough. Just give me 1 second. I just want to sip a glass of water, and that it should be fine. All right, guys. I hope that should be better now. So yeah, so focus on the method building part. Don't worry about timing. And as a natural learning process, when you learn something for the first time, it actually takes slightly longer to get into the zone. Take some time to get used to the method. So don't worry about timing. In the fine-tuning phase, on the other hand, when you're coming to fine-tuning, you have to then worry about the timing. Basically, you have to focus on timing here. Now, how do you improve upon timing? So you can take sectional tests also to improve your timing by making sure first that you optimize your weak areas. Obviously, if you still have gaps in concepts or still have gaps in the approach that you're using to solve the question, you will not be able to apply the methodology properly, you'll not be able to improve your timing. You will be focusing on the wrong aspect. So first optimize your weak areas and then you take sectional tests to reduce your timing. Now, how do you do this? So basically focus on the areas in which you are taking extra time to solve questions and try to reduce the timing down. How do you do that? Let's say you take sectional test one, okay, and currently let's say you are taking 2 minutes 30 seconds per question, okay, around 2 minutes 30 seconds per question. So what you should do is in the first sectional test, next sectional test, try to bring this time down to 2 minutes 20 seconds. Okay, in the next sectional test, try to bring this down to 2 minutes 10 seconds. Idea is to slowly and gradually reduce the time instead of just reducing it in one go. Okay, and when you're doing this, try to see where are you wasting time. Is it basically on answer choice elimination? If you're wasting time more on answer choice elimination, there is a possibility that you're not doing the right analysis in the question stem itself. So you need to do analysis on question stem better so that you don't waste time on the answer choices. So it's important for you to understand exactly what kind of mistake are you making, where are you wasting that time. And again, your mentor, GMAT mentor, can help you in this regard as well. So again, going back to our action plan, we already talked about step one, learning phase sorted with the GMAT study plan. We'll help you with that. Fine tuning sorted. When you work with GMAT mentors, they help you in understanding exactly where you're going out. And that's one of the biggest reasons why GMAT students improve their scores by about 95 plus points on an average, which is the highest score improvement in the entire industry. And students generally, a lot of people come to us at this stage when they're struggling with their GMAT. We help them improve their GMAT scores. Obviously, we have a lot of people who improve their GMAT score or get a good score in the first attempt as well. But the GMAT mentorship program really kicks in for retakers who actually need that improvement. And if you are someone who is looking for some inspiration as a retaker, I'm going to share another story with you. A guy who worked with multiple courses in the past, multiple courses, like 2 courses in the past, and still was stuck at a 670 for more than 2-3 months. Used the GMAT course in 2 months, was able to improve his score from 670 to 740. And this guy's score was not moving even a bit. Like it stayed at 670 for 2 continuous months. And in 20 days, he was able to improve his score from 670 to 740. He's currently studying at INSEAD. Rishabh, if you want to take some inspiration, you can definitely watch this interview. But definitely it is important for you to kind of ensure that you get the fine tuning right. Okay, Hector has a question, so let's take up that question. If you want to learn, for example, sentence correction as an average, how much time taken to handle the topic? 2 weeks, was it now? What is normal? So again, Hector, you will get to know this on the GMAT study plan free trial as well. For every topic, obviously, I can't tell you that for every topic, but for sentence correction, I'm going to answer that question. But in case you want to know it about every topic, how much time it's going to take, based on the number of hours you put in, you can actually check it out on this link by creating a free trial account. But yeah, if you are doing sentence correction and approximately, I would say if you're an average learner, as in your pace of learning is not too fast, not too slow, you would need to spend about 35 to 40 hours of effort on that. So if you're doing, let's say, 20 hours in a week, 2 weeks is sufficient. Okay, I hope that answers your question, Hector. All right, so now let's move to the last phase, the mocks basically, right? What should your mock strategy be? How should you go about structuring your mocks? Basically, what should your strategy be for mock tests? So let's understand that. So please understand that you should not come to the mock stage unless you have done well on the first two. If your understanding of the first two is not great, the first 2 phases you have not done well on, you will actually struggle with the mock phase. So what is the mock strategy? The right mock strategy is to first learn about the test taking, learn about the algorithm. Because see, right now, as I said, in the last stage, if you look at the last stage, which is fine tuning, your score would be around 700 to 740. And this mock stage, if you do the right mock strategy, you will see a jump of easily 20 to 30 points by actually using the right mock strategy. So we actually recommend a lot of great strategies in terms of timing. People many times don't understand the GMAT and they cut corners on the wrong places, end up getting a much lower GMAT score in the end. So it's very important for you to kind of understand how the test really functions. So if you want to check out that session, I'm sharing that link below here in this chat here. This is a very detailed session. We spend almost an hour or more to kind of talk about the different aspects of the GMAT algorithm, how different sections work, how different quarters work, what is the importance of each quarter, what the average time you spend on each quarter. Should you be skipping questions in the beginning? Should you be skipping questions in the end? All those things I've covered in this. So you can definitely watch this and understand all about those strategies. The first thing is for you to understand the strategies. Then what you need to do is you need to take one mock test every 3 to 4 days. And if you remember, this stage is what takes about 30 to 50 hours of effort if you do the first two stages properly. So it won't take you a lot of effort in the mock stage, like about 10 to 15 days should be sufficient if you're doing the first two stages right. Okay, that's the precursor. I'm probably telling that again and again, but it's very important for you to do the first two right. If you do that, then one mock test every 3 to 4 days and about 3 to 4 marks, maybe 5 marks, sufficient for you to take the test. And very important is that after every single test, you do analysis. You focus on analysis, understand where things went wrong, where you need to improve, and work on those areas accordingly. Because another mistake which people do is they take mocks, but they don't analyze the mocks as well. And when they don't analyze the mocks in the right way, they end up not getting the maximum outcome possible from it. Okay, so you have to analyze the mocks correctly. Now, in GMAT Risk, you will get that analysis as well. I'm not showing that analysis right now over here, but you can take a free mock test on our platform and actually get to see that analysis. So what we do is we don't just provide you with information or data about how the various scores are or which areas you are good or bad at. We also take the data to the next level and create actionable insights after each mock. So you will be able to see exactly what your weakness is, what is the first step that you should take, which concepts areas you need to work on, which process areas you need to work on. So you get proper in-depth insights for every single step that you need to take. So if you want to check out a GMAT mock, you can take a free mock using this link. I've just shared that link over here in the chat. You can definitely use that. And you will be able to see how you need to analyze each mock. What are the level of insights that you need to get. Okay. Now, one more thing that you need to understand is that when you are doing all of it, it is very important that you also check whether what is your mock score and how far away is it from a target score. So let's say your target score is a 750 and your mock scores are 650, or let's say 50-60 points away from your target score. Let's say in the range of 650 to 690, then it is still too far away from the target score. This basically means you are having issues with the like topics individually. You cannot just take more mocks and improve your score magically through that. So you have to work on fine tuning once again. So speak to your mentor, connect with your GMAT mentor, understand from them what needs to be done, and decrease the frequency of mock tests. Don't just take any other mock test after that. First work on your weakness, improve upon your weaknesses, and once you improve upon your weaknesses, then only go ahead and take further mocks. Understood? I hope this is clear to all of you guys. Okay. Now, this is how you go about the strategy. So again, quick iteration. Your action plan has to be done in these 3 stages. I told you everything about how to go about individual stages. Any questions you have, you can ask me now. I'm opening this session for an open-ended Q&A now. I have a question from Adrish. I'm going to take it up. But in case you want to discuss your questions, you want to understand more about our services or discuss your questions with me directly or our GMAT team, you can always shoot us an email on support@gmatris.com, and I'm also giving a link to kind of schedule a call with our team. Many of the calls are also taken up by me, so you might be lucky if I can connect with you. So you can use this link to also connect with me or my team over here to discuss your questions. But if you have any questions right now, please feel free to ask. And I hope you guys enjoyed this session, understood how to create an action plan as a working professional, what are the various aspects that are important. So please do feel free to give it a like, thumbs up. That will really help and appreciate the effort that you have put in. So that will be really great. Okay, I'll take up a question from Adrish. Adrish is saying, got a 560 the first official test with a month of desperate practice. Is it possible to get 720 with the steps you mentioned? Definitely, Adrish. If the steps which I mentioned were not helpful, I would have not have mentioned them. But if your question is whether can you improve your score from a 560 to 720 plus, definitely possible. Definitely possible. We have seen people improving their score by much more. We have seen people improving their score by like 250 points. People starting from a 460 improving their score all the way from to 710, 720 like that. So definitely you can improve it. Just make sure that you follow the advice which is there, which I shared. Okay, Prashant, private tutoring for verbal specific areas. So Prashant, please we schedule a call. I'll definitely talk about that. Private tutoring. We do offer private tutoring services from a very, very senior expert who has a very great track record. Sunita Singhi, you might have also seen some of our sessions. So we can definitely talk about that. Regarding verbal score improvement, again, I can talk at length about it. But again, today is not the time because we don't have the session dedicated for that today. So I'm definitely going to take up another session. So Pradeep, thank you so much for again pointing it out. I'm going to probably have a session very quickly in next 2 weeks on verbal, or maybe in next 2 to 3 weeks on verbal focus strategy. So we'll talk in depth about the verbal section. But in case you want to check out, there is a link which I've already shared for a verbal improvement session, verbal score improvement session. You can go and check it out in depth. If I've completed my OGs, so Kunal has a question. If I completed my OGs, then what should I solve for practice, considering not ready for mock? So again, if you have completed your OGs, what should you solve? More important than what you should solve is which areas you need to focus on. So if you're not ready for marks, that means you are weak. So you have to focus on fine tuning. So go back to the points that I mentioned around fine tuning, Kunal. You have to identify where you're conceptually weak, where you're weak because of your approach, and you have to focus on those areas according to that. So don't just do more questions. Try to see whether your approach is right or not. If your approach is wrong, then if you're doing more questions, then you're actually trying to get better at using the wrong method, which may not be the best thing to do, right? Because then you are probably wasting your time on something which may not work out for you. Understood? So identify where you're going wrong, why you're going wrong, and then act accordingly. And obviously, if you have any other questions, if you want to have a more in-depth discussion, feel free to schedule a call with our team. We will definitely love to help you in figuring out where you're going wrong. So I would ask if the team or me, whoever takes the call, we will ask you the relevant questions, understand from you what are your strong and weak areas, and accordingly we offer that. Okay? Hope that helps, Kunal. Okay. Any other questions, guys? Feel free to shoot it my way. Happy to take it up. Those of you who have just joined it, do watch the recording. If you're a working professional, you can definitely get to know more about how the entire GMAT preparation should work for you, how should you go about doing it in a structured fashion. And if you want to if you want to get a link, create a free study plan for yourself, you can use this link which I've just shared in the chat, create a study plan. Okay. I've been failing at RC. So Pradeep has a question. I've been failing at RCs, mostly unable to understand the passages. So if you are failing at RCs, Pradeep, then there is a very high likelihood that you are not reading the information in the right way. You need to understand how to break the information down at each stage, how to read each sentence properly, and that's something which you probably need to work upon. So your reading style has to improve, because what generally happens is that when people try to read fast, they end up missing out on very important aspects of the information given in the passage, which they don't understand, and then they struggle with the options and they end up spending more time by rereading the passage. So if you want to check out a webinar which we conducted for reading comprehension specifically, you can check out this webinar link which I've just shared for you. Okay, this is the link, you can use this. Okay, guys, so thank you so much for being here today. I really enjoyed having a session with you guys, like after a long time it has been. But yeah, I'll be back again in a couple of weeks, mostly with another topic, with a lot of more insights, different insights about how to improve your GMAT scores. So all the best for your preparation, and do feel free to reach out to our team. We are more than happy to be a part of your journey and take you through to your GMAT journey, to your good deal. Score. Okay, so all the best, guys. It's Piyush Beriwala and GMAT team signing off today. Thank you so much. Thank you, Agnes. I'm really happy to know that it helped you. Thank you so much.